Well, good evening. It's a sunny, beautiful afternoon, and I am coming to you from the shrub area here at Handy Andy's Nursery, and I'm glad you could tune in to this week's edition of What's Up Wednesday. As I always begin, it's always a privilege and a great honor to have you tune into these videos and hopefully get some helpful information about gardening in the regions of Northwest North Dakota, Northeast Montana, and some other areas maybe that experience a climate similar to that of a zone 3 to 4 climate. So for those of you who are tuning in, I am thankful and glad you could tune in live, and those who will watch later, I hope you again get some helpful information. As I say, I am coming to you live from Handy Andy's Nursery. Here I am in the shrub area, right out the main back doors here of the greenhouse. You find our shrubs all located here in this area. And I have, of course, the big glass garage door behind me as well. That's where our classes all happen. Some of you have been to some of our workshops, and I've had a great time enjoying plants and doing things with plants in some of our workshops. And I will get to some of those a little bit later on. But I want to get first to our weather update, to our water update, to our featured topic, and then to some plant showcase items today. So let's get to that right away. Weather update, of course, we are headed into the beautiful season of fall. And I don't know about you guys, but I love fall. When I used to go to school and I had to go sit inside for the afternoon or for most of the day, I didn't like it as much. But now that I'm past that and I don't have to do that anymore and I can spend the fall days outside, I love that it's cool in the morning. I love that it's warm in the evening. I just can't get enough of the fall time of year. So with that comes bright colors, comes some things that are changing, of course, outdoors. Plants are starting to think about the impending winter. Shouldn't talk like that, but that's unfortunately a reality. And there's lots of information that I want to impart as far as fall planting, because as I've said in many past lives, now is the best time to do any outdoor planting. Now's the time to do it. And as you can see behind you in the shrub area that I am kind of panning around, I do have a nice selection of shrub product left to choose from. I have a nice selection of perennials, and I do have a nice selection of shade and ornamental trees, as well as a good selection of fruit trees also. I have a nice selection of product for this time of year. I aim to always have some things to choose from, but this year we're really still well stocked as far as available items to choose from. So I am out of some things. There are some things that you won't find, but you'll find them again in the spring. I have begun preparing for spring orders already. I know it's hard to believe, but I'm afraid that if I don't get my foot in the door on many of those things, that there may be some scarcity again next year. Just a strange year that we've dealt with regard to availabilities of products. It's been rather difficult, as some of you have found in other avenues. Just doesn't prove to let up, I don't think. We're going to have some challenges getting and hanging on to some things for a few years, maybe even to come. So, but the fall is the best time to plant. I do want to reiterate that and talk about that. Now is the time, because our soil is warm and the days are good. It's still got some warm temperatures. We got plenty of room for a 40-degree soil temperature to get some good roots, get some feet underneath these plants before winter. So now is the optimum planting window. People have asked, when is the latest that you can plant? Well, honestly, you can put a plant in the ground as long as you can dig a hole. But the optimum planting window is kind of the rest of this month of September. So if you're thinking you want to get something done outside, now is the time to be thinking about doing that. We have some fall sales going on. You've heard me talk about those in some previous live videos, and you see some signs posted around the store and in the tree area to talk about that. We're playing a game called Plinko for fall sales, and you can find out more information about that. Just peruse our Facebook feed and stop in and visit us and take a look at that Plinko board, and you can win some fall sales and really get a good deal and get some good information and be successful planting in the fall. And I will get to our plant showcase a little later on, and we'll talk about some fun options and how some things are really showing their fall colors right now. So do want to talk a little bit more also though about the water update. Always got to have that in there, because one of the most important things we do for outdoor stock and for things that are year after year outside is we have to provide them with what they need. If you're not real familiar with the climate of Northwest North Dakota and Northeast Montana, we're dry. I know, big shocker. but it's a reality. We just are. You don't see trees in the grasslands, in the prairies, in our areas of the country. Even if you go south, you really don't see that because we just are too dry. And so if we want to have an oasis, we want our yard to be a rich, lush landscape, unfortunately, that's the requirement, is that we have to make sure we're providing consistent and adequate water to our plants in order to be successful. So that needs to occur kind of throughout the rest of this month, into October, and actually even into parts of November, if that's possible. As the weather now has started to calm down, and we're looking at a little bit cooler temperatures now than what we had been experiencing back in August, and definitely in the late part of July and 4th of July, that area when it was just triple digits. Now that we're back into the upper 70s and maybe 80 or so during the day, now we can cut back to our watering needs of maybe a couple, 3 times a week. Twice a week, 3 times a week is probably enough. Give a young plant a couple of gallons is kind of a good regiment. On a tree, you might want to give it even up to 5 gallons would be a good idea to give it a few gallons like that 2 to 3 times a week, every other day or so, and continue to do that until probably the middle of October. We want to make sure that we're providing good, consistent moisture up into the middle of October like that. Every 2 to 3 days, or every other day or so, we should be giving it something. After that time, when we get into the month of October and it starts to get even a little cooler yet, then we can think about maybe cutting back to once a week. But we still need to water. We still have to give our plants some consistent moisture, even close to Thanksgiving is going to be really beneficial. Up until the ground starts to get hard, we should be getting our plants some routine moisture to make sure that they go into the winter very hydrated and very wet. Some other things we can do to help with our open and bare and dry and cold winters that we experienced like last winter, we can at that time, late October, November, when it's starting to get to where it's barely above freezing during the day, we can think about some applications of some mulch or some methods of cover to help insulate our plants and get them some protection from that cold. What that also will help to do is it'll act as a buffer in the spring and help keep things asleep maybe a little bit longer, and we shouldn't deal with that late frost or the early frost issues that we sometimes have in April and May in our region. So that's a little bit on the water update, of course, and the weather update, and on fall being the time to plant. Let's move on though and talk about our plant showcase. Always want to get to that. I always have some fun things to share with you, and I'm going to stand kind of right here at the front of our perennial area. If you haven't been to see us before, when you come past the shrubs, I'll flip the camera around, maybe I can. So when you come out this back door, you find all of our shrubs here, as I was talking with you before. Those were in my background. And then as we flip around and we walk this way, between the buildings, we find all of our perennial plants. Plants that are on this center sidewalk, both sides, are known to be perennial plants, meaning year after year plants in our region. There's a door on the side of this greenhouse here that's about halfway back, and there's kind of an aisle there. There's a breezeway between the greenhouses. This area forward are what are considered full sun or all-day sun plants. 6 or more hours of light in the first half of this aisle. Behind that door and behind that breezeway, under the shade of those beautiful ash trees back there, are some things that would be considered shade items. So things that would be considered full sun, such as daylilies, such as gaillardia, such as sedum, grasses, those types of things would be full sun or all-day plants. And then behind that breezeway and that doorway, you find the items for shade, things such as astilbe, hostas, those types of things that would be great opportunities for a shade garden. So I'm going to show you a few perennial options here this evening, and flip the camera again, and let's look at some plants, huh? This is a woods purple aster, and it is going at it, just loving life. I have a nice selection of these right now. They are a fall blooming perennial. As I've said in some past live videos, perennials do not bloom all year long. It's just not the way they were designed. They were designed to complete their life cycle in more than one season, and so because of that, they do not bloom all year. They choose a time of year that is conducive for their pollinator or whoever they're trying to attract with their flower, and that's when they bloom. So you want to spend some time, if you're thinking of doing perennials, you want to spend some time thinking about picking some things that will bloom at various times of the year. So don't plant all the same thing, because then you'll only get your blooms at a certain time of year. You can, I guess. Sometimes people, they like that. They're going to have a get-together every year. They always get together on a certain date, and they want their garden to look just great at that time of year, and that's fine. It doesn't need to look good the rest of the year. I only want it to look good on, say, Labor Day, because we all get together on Labor Day at the lake. Great. Whatever your motive or reasoning is, just bear that in mind as you go to choose plants for that space. So I did kind of breeze through those plants and kind of show you some of the close-ups of some of the flowers. We're going to flip them around. I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about those items. Okay. So as I mentioned, the purple dome aster is woods purple aster rather is a fall blooming plant. Aster are great fall blooming plants. They bloom almost all the way up until hard frosts can kind of finally start to kill their blooms. They're a great late season plant for interest. Also great late summer or late season plants are sedum. A lot of sedum do bloom in the summer, but there are many sedum. This is Autumn Joy sedum. Starting to get its pink flower head developed and really going to look just stunning here real shortly. I love Autumn Joy sedum. Autumn Joy sedum is one of the best kept secrets. It's not even really a secret for our region, but it's a great plant for the region. This one is another variety of sedum. This one is Dark Magic. This has a much darker bloom. You'll notice that. It also has a nice, rich, kind of purpley red foliage. And that foliage stays on the plant all summer long. It adds some nice color and some interest to the landscape. So it's a great plant to mix with maybe some other colors. There are some perennial grasses that I have here I want to show you. This is an Elijah Blue fescue. Elijah Blue is one of my favorite perennial plants. Yes, I say that a lot. I have lots of favorites, don't I? But I just can't pick one, so that's the way it is. But Elijah Blue is a great short mounding grass. It gets less than a foot tall. It does have this blue foliage on it all through the summer. You see a seed head on that picture in the tag that happens kind of in late May or early June, somewhere around there. It does list this plant as being deer resistant. There are some plants that are less, what would you say, popular with deer. That's a true statement. And there are some things that they may be inclined to leave alone a little bit more. Another perennial grass, and I've shared this one in a previous fall live, but is the prairie drop seed. That beautiful seed head on this one shows up right around now in late summer. It's starting to get some of its fall color. You're seeing some kind of oranging going on this sedgy looking prairie drop seed. I'm going to see if I can show you the seed head on this grass. You see it there, and it does kind of have a scent. Oh, that's right. That Mark Zuckerberg, I'm going to have a talk with him. He hasn't figured out how to make sense happen through these live videos yet. Someday maybe he'll figure that out and he'll be even richer than he is. But they have a beautiful scent to them, this prairie drop seed. There's lots of aromas and things with flowers and plants, of course, and I wish that we could find a way to incorporate that into the video, but not meant to be. So someday maybe it will. But we'll move on. The Little Spire is a variety of Russian sage. And I really like Russian sage. Some think this one just gets in the way. It's weedy. It just goes everywhere. But this is a Little Spire Russian sage. It does look a little bit like lavender. Some people have a tendency to confuse this plant for lavender. It is not lavender. Lavender is not winter hardy in our region. It will not come back from a winter. There you see a little pollinator there hanging out on that flower. So that is Little Spire. Little Spire gets about 1.5 to 2 feet tall. Not quite as tall as the common Russian sage, which can get almost 3 feet tall, or maybe even a little taller. It will spread out too. It will get almost 3 to 4 feet across in addition to tall. So it's a pretty big perennial plant. The last perennial I want to show you is this Fire Witch Dianthus, which there are very few perennial plants that bloom all summer. As I said, it's just not the way they were designed. They're meant to bloom only at certain times of year, but with some care, the Fire Witch Dianthus, you'll see there are some spent blooms on here, but with some deadheading and some care, you can get this plant to bloom most of the summer, off and on. It probably will still take a break in the middle of the hot summer. You know, when it gets to be that 90 degrees, don't expect many things to do a heck of a lot of flowering. It's just really hard on them. You don't like it when it's 90 degrees or 100 degrees, and your plant doesn't either. So that's a little bit on perennials. We're going to move on. We're going to walk over here, and I'm going to show you a few shrub options, and then we'll look at some tree options. So my featured topic tonight, I did want to spend just a little bit of time talking with you guys about the fact that we are here all year long. There are some garden centers that they're only open for the summer months. Maybe they're even only open for the spring of the year. They have their spring flowers, and that's really all. And that is not the case with us. We are here to be a resource for you all year long. This main building that you've kind of seen me showcase in the back of the video here in the background, this building stays open all year long. We have a nice selection of fall classes, which I'm going to get to. We have winter classes or Christmas classes coming after that, and then all winter long we will do workshops that are focused on plant topics all throughout the winter. We'd really love it if you'd stop and visit us in person and have a look at what we do have to offer, because as I say, this building stays open all year long. You'll find our aquatic center in there. Aquatics? Yes. Yeah, we have fish. If you weren't aware of that, it's maybe a little bit of an odd pairing, but we do. We are known to kind of have a nice selection of aquatic items in addition to our plant items, and some aquatic plants. So that's something you may want to come check out too. A lot of kids love to come and walk through the aquatics area, walk through and look at the fish, and just have a good time on a Saturday afternoon, enjoying things that are living, whether it's a tropical plant or whether it's aquatics, or maybe even taking part in one of the workshops that I mentioned. So do remember that unlike some places, we are open all year long. I'm getting ready for our fall series of workshops are happening now. I'm starting to get ready for our Christmas ones, and after that I'll have our winter series coming out. But our Christmas trees will be here before we know it, I'm afraid to say. I hate to talk like that, but do you cut back your grasses in the fall? Is a question on the Facebook Live here. Yes, you may. That is one of those things that's back and forth. You can do a fall cleanup on your perennials. Once they've experienced a hard frost, you can go ahead and cut them back quite short. I like to leave about 6 or 9 inches, so at least I can find the plant if I want to. But you can go ahead and cut your grasses back in the fall. Some like to leave them. I like the winter interest that they provide. So I like to leave them and cut them in the spring. Some people tell me they have trouble with that because they will catch moisture, and they have some instances where they're concerned that the root ball then is prone to rotting for them. I haven't found that. We're far too dry for that normally, but if you want to, you may cut them back. Fall is a good time to cut them back again after they've experienced a frost, or wait till spring, because I kind of like the way they look in the winter. So that's a little bit on that question. Back to some of our featured items. I'm going to flip around now and talk with you about some shrub options for the region. So as I say, there are some shrub options that we have in stock right now. I did kind of pan and show you some of those earlier in the video as I was standing elsewhere in the shrub area. But this item here is a spirea. And some people don't like spirea. They kind of, I guess, get a bad rap for some people. They think that they're ugly and seedy and yucky and they don't like them. But I really can't say enough good about spirea. This is the beautiful fall colors that you're starting to see on spirea. They have almost molten colors, purples and reds, and really unique foliage colors in the winter, or in the late fall rather, or summer. But they add a lot to the landscape. Spirea are a bulletproof plant. They are so tough that you will have a hard time killing them in our region. They're drought hardy. They're good in full sun. They can take a lot of adverse conditions, and so they're a great plant for our region. So I really can't say enough good about spirea. They are a great plant, and I just love the opportunities that they present. Don't they get a prickly thing on them? No, spirea do not have a thorn, not at all. You may be thinking of barberry, and that would be true. Barberry do have a tiny little thorn. I do have some barberry. We can look at those. So I'll flip the camera around. These are barberry. And this is I think a limoncello barberry. There are Japanese barberry that are purple. There are other barberry too that are shorter, compact varieties. This yellow one here is the saffron. It's a Sunjoy series. But these do have a thorn, but Spirea, no, Spirea do not have any thorn of any kind. Not at all. Not at all. But they are a great plant for the region. They bloom usually in June or July, and they hang on to their bloom for a few weeks. And then by the 4th of July or so, most of them are kind of done. The Bomald Spirea, the Gold Flame, and the Anthony Water kind of hang on to their blooms and go into the middle of July. But by the mid-July or so, they're mostly done flowering. But they are a great plant for the region. The other one I want to show you is this is a dogwood. And dogwood have, as you can start to see, a beautiful fall color to them. They have kind of a red fall color, and in addition to the red leaf that you see, dogwood also add a lot of winter interest to the landscape because they do have a red twig that sticks around on most dogwood, sticks around all through the winter. And the young growth, the growth that's younger than about 3 years, has this nice red twig to it. Some of the older growth, it tends to get a little woody, and maybe it doesn't have that redness to it. You see an old little trunk down there, but the new fresh growth, it has this nice red color to it in the winter months, which adds a lot of nice, unique interest and color to the landscape at a time when there's not much out there. So that's a favorite of mine, dogwood. This one is Neon Burst, but there are many varieties of dogwood right now that they've worked on and bred to be a little bit smaller. The Redosier, or the big red twig dogwood, can get like large, 8 feet or more. But many of these varieties now are dwarf cultivars where they maintain a smaller habit. They only get about 5-6 feet. So I'm a 6-foot person. They don't get any taller than about that. And they are fairly easy to maintain or to prune if you would want to cut them back or keep them at a measurable size. They're a great foundation plant. Most dogwood are, because they now have kind of some reduced, smaller, compact habits to them. The last one I want to show you is an odd one. I usually don't end up able to stock these until later in the summer. I hope to have some in the spring sometime. But this is a plant called Symphocarpus, or snowberry. There are very few things that bloom in the hot part of the summer, in the middle of the summer, but Symphocarpus do. They tend to bloom sometime in the late part of July or 1st of August. And it's not a real showy flower, but it does mature to this rich kind of a pink, and you may do that. That's not a problem at all. You can sure cut your dogwood down. They have this kind of a pink fruit to them. There are some varieties that have a white fruit to them, but it's kind of a unique plant, Symphocarpus snowberry, as I say. This one is the candy variety, and it gets about 2 to 3 feet. Gets similar to height and spread of Spirea. If you're familiar with Spirea, maybe you are. It gets about that same height and spread as Spirea. So Symphocarpus are a great, unique plant. They have this kind of interest in the middle of the summer that you might have a hard time finding in some other plants. They add some unique contrasts and interest in the late summer kind of time frame. So now we'll move on into our tree area, and we'll look at a couple of trees, and I want to talk with you about some of our fall classes that we have going on. So here we are in our trees, and as you can see, I do have a nice selection of tree options to choose from right now. To my side here are most of my fruit trees. When you come into the tree area, I'll flip around. There are some short rows over here. And the rows that are short little rows here are usually the fruit trees. And then those trees, the trees that are on the rows that are longer off over this way, towards the front of our complex, that would be trees that would be ornamental and shade options for the climate. So that helps you if you're looking for a fruit tree. You kind of have some idea of where to come and look for it. You'll find it right in the shorter rows here. There's several of them right now to my left-hand side. So I do want to share a couple tree options with you. And I want to share an ornamental option and a shade option, shade tree option and an ornamental tree option. When I talk about the difference between shade trees and ornamental trees, let's do that just briefly. When I think ornamental tree, people often come looking for a tree and they say, I need a tree, but I don't want it to get real big. And I ask them if they're looking for a shade tree and they're not really sure. And so I kind of tend to break trees down between two categories, as I've said already: ornamental trees and shade trees. Ornamental trees would be trees that are 30 feet high or less. Trees that would be an example of that would be flowering crabapple, some varieties of maple, which we're going to look at in a second. Tree lilac would be an example of that. Things that tend to be smaller trees. Hawthorn, serviceberry, those would be a candidate for an ornamental tree. Canada chokecherry, that would be an ornamental tree. So most fruit trees, apple, pear, plum, they would be considered ornamental trees. And then when you get above that 30-foot mark, then you run into trees that I consider to be shade trees, trees like ash, linden, maple, oak, those types of things that get at least 30 feet, usually closer to 50, and they'll have at least a 30-foot spread. So that would be a shade tree versus an ornamental tree. But let's look at a shade tree, an ornamental tree rather. Let's look at this Amur maple. Amur maple are a very ornamental, very small tree. They don't get big at all. They are actually, in some instances, a very large shrub. They have a beautiful fall color. Oranges, reds, they're a very beautiful fall foliage plant. The Amur maple gets about 15, 18 feet tall and about 15 feet across, roughly. So some consider them a big shrub like a lilac. Some consider them a tree. You'll notice that on the picture of the tag, this kind of has the appearance of being a multi-stem plant. There are many ornamental trees that are prone to some suckering, meaning they come from the trunk, come at the bottom in the spring of the year, and if left unattended, they can resemble a bush kind of a looking tree. And that is your discretion if that's what you're looking for. That's fine. Go ahead and leave a multi-stem plant. Some people like that. If you don't like that, just make sure in the spring of the year that you're kind of rubbing those or clipping those little sprouts off as they appear, and just remind the plant that it is a tree and not a shrub. So that's a little bit on that ornamental tree. I love Amur maple. They are a beautiful, very small, stately tree. They are great for a big kind of maybe an open planting area around a patio or in a patio. They're not going to get real large. They aren't going to provide a whole bunch of shade, but they are going to be a real nice ornamental option for someplace in your landscape. So the next one we're going to look at is this beautiful Majestic Skies oak. And oak, I feel, kind of get a bad rap. Every time you bring up the word oak, people say, well, I don't want that tree. It takes forever to grow. Well, that is true that it's not as fast as, say, aspen or willow or maybe some other things that are still pretty fast, like silver maple. It's not the fastest tree in the race, but it is a beautiful tree. And if you plant an oak, you know the oak is going to be there forever, almost forever. What I really love about the Majestic Skies is it does have this very sawtooth type leaf to it. It is a pin oak. Being a pin oak, it is a little bit faster than some other varieties of oak. It does tend to grow fairly fast. There's a lot of variables associated with growth rate. So people say, well, how fast does it grow? Well, between a foot to 2 feet a year, which isn't bad for an oak. What I really am attracted to about the pin oak is it does, kind of like the Amur maple, have an enjoyable kind of fall foliage to it. It is a big tree. It is a shade tree. It will get 60 feet tall. It'll get 40 feet across. So it is a big, big tree, but it will be a great, great addition to the landscape. Has, again, this kind of saw, jagged-looking edge to it. Not smooth like some oak you might be familiar with. And it is a great, great addition to the landscape. Once it gets its feet in the ground, gets rooted after a couple, 3 years, maybe 4, then it will start to put up some growth. And if it's getting good water, you can get probably close to 18 inches anyway out of this pin oak in a season. So that's a couple of tree options that I wanted to show you. I do want to move on now as we kind of work towards our the end of our video and show you a couple of fall workshop opportunities that we do have coming up. So let's look at those. So if you've been following our social media outlets at all, you've seen that we have released our fall classes. And here on this cart here this evening out in the trees, I have an example of our fall frame that we're going to do. And this is just a sample that was done up, but you'll get a dried allotment and you'll get a chalkboard frame that you'll get to deck out and work on and just create something that's very unique and could be used to display in your home or anywhere for some fall event that you might have coming up. So there's still plenty of room coming up in the fall frame workshop. We do have some space left in that. Most of our workshops are on Saturdays. There is generally a 10 o'clock and a 2 o'clock workshop opportunity for most of our sessions. So that doesn't mean that you have to come to the 10 o'clock and the 2 o'clock. You don't. You need to just choose whichever time you would want to come to, and that's the one you'd register for. And you can register for all of our workshop opportunities on our website, and that website is handyandysnursery.com. handyandysnursery.com. There's a workshops tab right on the top main heading of the website. You can find the workshops tab there, find the workshop store, and you will be taken to the store where you can see all the workshop opportunities that we have coming up. As I said, we do have plans for our Christmas or our winter series, and then after that I'll have my winter workshops all through the winter. We'll have some fun topics to be going over. So let's look at our next option. This one I'm excited about. I'll be leading this one on what's called the mossy arrangement. And we're going to work with, in this workshop, we're going to work with tropicals. We're going to work with tropicals, and we're going to work with some plants that are maybe more shade loving. And I have them outside in the sun here this evening, but they're going to go back in and get in some shade. But we're going to work with some plants that love kind of dark environments, that handle some moist conditions, that you might think of moss kind of growing on them and moss kind of growing on logs and things around them. And so we're going to work on this mossy arrangement. I'm going to talk with you about some of these plant options for indoors, and we'll make an arrangement that you'll get to put together and go home with. And if you should manage to fail caring for some of those plants, we're going to design this arrangement in such a way that you'll be able to replace that plant and no one will even know you failed. Don't you love that? I do, because I fail all the time. So the mossy arrangement is again going to feature some of these fun tropical plants. This is a rippled pep. This is a autumn fern. And then this is a blue star fern. And this is just some options of many that we'll have a chance to work with and get familiar with in our mossy arrangement workshop. That one coming up on the 25th of September. So that one should be an awful lot of fun on indoor tropicals, and we'll spend some time making a fun opportunity in that mossy arrangement. Again, a 10 o'clock and a 2 o'clock session for that one. This next one, we are really excited. For years we've done a holiday series of workshops where we've done something called the Holiday Outdoor Pot, and this year we decided to piggyback off of that and do one on fall. So we have some fun fall options, some fun grasses. I have some mums that are reserved for that class. I'll have some pumpkin options, some pumpkins and some things coming a little bit later on, and we'll make a fall outdoor pot that will be a great addition to your front step. Could go in front of your business, could do just about anything with it. The fall outdoor pot workshop. There are 4 sessions of that workshop. I think there is still a little bit of space in all 4 sessions, though I think that the 2 p.m. on Saturday is filling up. It might be close to full at this point. But there are 4 opportunities. There's a Tuesday the 28th, a Thursday the 30th, and then 2 sessions rather, on Saturday, October 2nd, a 10 o'clock and a 2 o'clock session for the fall outdoor pots. After that, perennial favorite, this one is one that we have done for years when we've done fall workshops, succulent pumpkins, and you can kind of see in the back of that graphic that we'll be working with succulents, and I'll be sharing with you some information on how to be successful with succulents inside. That's kind of a challenge for a lot of folks. Succulents are not the most ideal indoor plant, and we'll talk about that in the video, or I mean in the class, but we'll also get to make this succulent pumpkin. And if you've taken this workshop before, or if you know friends that have, you can ask them about the longevity of this workshop, that project. It just lasts for a long time. So succulent pumpkins is a perennial favorite. Lots of room in that one yet, and you can register for that one on the website as well. Just go to handyandiesnursery.com and you'll find that workshop happening on the 16th of October. Again, both a 10 o'clock and a 2 o'clock session of that one. The next one, we'll work with some drieds as we did in our fall frame, and we'll do something called a pumpkin centerpiece. We'll work with some mini pumpkins, we'll work with a container, and we'll work with some dried items, and we'll make a pumpkin centerpiece just in time for the Thanksgiving table. And that should be an awful lot of fun. That one is coming up on the 9th of October, and that should be an enjoyable time for thinking about fall and thinking about Thanksgiving and all those fun things that go with fall. So we do have a nice selection of items as I've kind of perused those with you here this evening in the video. Nice selection of perennials, nice selection of shrubs, great selection of trees to choose from. We are playing Plinko as part of our fall sales, so do stop in and check that out. We'd love to have you take advantage of some good deals and a good discount on some fall product. Get some information to be successful. Go home and plant at the best time of the year to do any outdoor planting. So do check out the workshops also on the website. Love to have you join us for that. Presently, our hours here at the nursery this fall are 9 to 6, Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday, and at the present time, we still are closed on Sundays, but that may change yet this fall. So just stay apprised of our phone message, stay apprised of our website and our Facebook hours, and we'll update those hours as soon as they do change in those 3 locations. So with that, I'll wish you a wonderful evening. Enjoy the beautiful weather, enjoy fall, and good luck and happy growing.